We're here today in Augustana Teaching Collection Gallery looking at Venus Italica.
Venus is known as the goddess of love and beauty. She was born in the sea foam, and then the west wind took her to the island of Cythera.
This specific piece is actually just the tour copy of the original done by Canova. The original actually has quite an interesting backstory. It was commissioned by the Duke of Tuscany, who asked him to copy the Medici Venus, which had been stolen by France. This was very contrary to Canova's belief, since he did not like thinking of his work as a direct copy. Because of this, he made slight alterations to the Medici Venus, which was sort of his compromise in giving them what they want, but also not making a copy. At the same time that the Venus Italica was started, the Venus in Munich was also begun. Venus was a typical subject for him, as he ended up making 4 of them. The Venus and the Venus Italica, which were started at the same times, were both very similar in fashion, where she holds up a drapery to conceal her body more than in the Medici Venus. Also, a change in this one, she looks out as if alarmed by a sound in the distance and almost seems ready to flee, which is very different from the original, where she simply stood there looking into the distance, completely nude. There is one Venus that he made that was more similar to this, which was his 4th, which was Hope Venus, in which she held the drapery lower at her side, leaving the entire top half of her body exposed.
Something that's really interesting about this particular Venus is how the rosebuds from the top of her head and from the base that is shown matches, giving this division of space, and it also helps bring the whole piece together and kind of like a more so forever love.
The original of Canova's Venus Italica actually did not have this elaborate stand. It did have the roses in her hair, however. So the stand was just added to the tour copy. And the tour copy really allowed more people to see this statue.
The statue was made in 1804 through 1811, meaning that this is a more neoclassicism art piece.
And you can really see the expression on her face. You see her looking out as though she's concerned.
And even like the drapery helps guide the eye to like the bottom of the vessel. So it kind of like helps the eye travel to the upper left-hand corner down to the lower right-hand corner.
You really do get that sense of movement. And you also get a strong contrast between her body, which is made of these smooth, curving lines, and then on the base, which was added later, it has more rigid lines, but it still holds the same beauty in it.
I think that it's interesting how the bottom of the vessel is more like a marble flat surface, and then you kind of see how her flesh is soft against it. So it's kind of like the hardness and then how soft her actual body is. And then also the silk of the drapery kind of also ties in with like the silk at the bottom of the sculpture too.
Yeah, and it's really amazing to get all of these textures out of something that is so hard. When you look at it, you don't see it as being marble or alabaster, which this tour copy is. You almost see the flesh, like you could reach out and touch her and she would feel like a real person.
Another thing that's interesting is that her hair is up, making her look even younger than maybe she might be. So it kind of adds more like youthness to this piece.
Absolutely, you definitely do get that young quality from her, and you see the youth in her face and her expression, and yet you also get a sense of modesty, which the Medici Venus did not have. In this one, she clings to that drapery to cover parts of her body, and she looks out as though alarmed, meaning she would not want someone to see her in this state.
I think it's actually really interesting how she's portrayed like this. Like you said, a lot of different Venuses have her like fully nude and like more so inviting, and this one is just like closed, and she just does not want to see anybody see like any parts of her that might be more so like you don't want people to see you naked type of thing.
Yes. This one's definitely more modest in that sense, which was really just a new idea for Venus. She wasn't typically trying to cover herself. She would be splayed out and you could see her body in a comfortable way.
This is also helpful because it kind of portrays a new sort of Venus.